I knew something was wrong the moment she started hiding her phone. Little did she know I was about to become the architect of her worst nightmare. I found her burner phone in the glove compartment 3 days before our anniversary. Right there, beneath the car manual and insurance papers, was the proof I needed but never wanted to find. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't announce itself with a thunderclap. It whispers first, leaving breadcrumbs of doubt until you're forced to see what your heart has been desperately trying to deny. This was becoming a true infidelity story, the kind I never thought would happen to me. The screen lit up with a message notification.
Can't wait to see you tomorrow. It's almost time.
My hands shook as I looked at the strange device. After 8 years of marriage, I thought I knew every part of Grace's life. Now, parked outside the grocery store, I felt like a spectator. I had just bought the ingredients for our anniversary dinner, but it all felt unreal. I recalled the night we met at the Chicago conference. Grace argued passionately with the keynote speaker about ethical marketing. Her intelligence matched her confidence. I fell in love with her mind first, her ambition and her clear vision of what she wanted. When did that clarity turn into calculation? Had it always been there? And was I too blinded by admiration to see it? It began 6 months ago. At first, the changes were small and hard to see. Grace took her phone to the bathroom, stayed late at work, and seemed vague about her weekend plans with office friends. The shift was so subtle that I felt paranoid for questioning it. Who was that calling so late? I asked one night after she slipped onto the balcony of our Boston apartment to take a call. She hesitated, her fingers tightening around the phone.
Just Amanda from accounting. Budget crisis.
Her smile never reached her eyes as she kissed my cheek and quickly changed the subject, a nervous energy in her movements that I hadn't noticed before. I wanted to trust her. Grace was dedicated to her marketing career. I admired that about her when we met at the industry conference in Chicago. Her ambition matched mine. We spent our early years building our careers and life together. We were a team, supporting each other through promotions and setbacks. We also bought our first home in the suburbs 2 years ago. The move was her idea. More space and better schools for the kids we planned to have. But those kids never came. The distance between us grew so slowly that I barely noticed. Our talks, once easy over dinner or hikes, became short and shallow. When I mentioned summer vacation plans, she'd look at her phone. Her replies were ambiguous, like, "We'll see," or "Let's talk later." Her tone was flat, lacking the excitement she once had for our adventures. I kept a mental list of inconsistencies, each one pricking the balloon of our marriage. One Tuesday night, I checked her work calendar while she showered. Mysterious lunch meetings appeared, but there were no names or locations. My fingertips traced the outline of an unfamiliar perfume bottle on her vanity, worn only on Thursdays. Never for me. She left our home in business casual attire, but would return in outfits I'd never seen, her lips painted a shade brighter than morning.
Just picked it up during lunch,
she'd say. Yet our credit card statements revealed nothing but coffee shops and gas stations.
You've been quiet lately,
my colleague James remarked during lunch one day.
Everything okay at home?
Just busy, I replied automatically. My stomach clenched as the words left my mouth, each syllable like acid rising in my throat. We hadn't been busy. We'd been distant, occupying the same space while living increasingly separate lives. That night, I tried again. Grace, I feel like we're drifting apart. Can we talk about what's going on? She looked up from her phone. For a moment, her expression showed guilt, but then her face returned to neutrality. Her shoulders tensed as she set the phone down.
Nothing's going on, Mark. I'm just stressed about the Wilson account.
She squeezed my hand, but her fingers felt cold and pulled away too quickly.
It'll be better once this project wraps up.
But it wasn't better. The next morning, I overheard her on the phone in our home office, her voice hushed but intense.
I can't talk now. Yes, I've thought about it. No, it's complicated. I know what you're saying, but there's so much to consider.
When she emerged, I pretended to be engrossed in the news on my tablet. "Who was that?" I asked casually.
Work.
She replied, without meeting my eyes, a slight tremor in her voice.
Always something.
That evening, I did something I never thought I'd do. While Grace showered, I checked her primary phone. It revealed nothing suspicious. No strange text messages, no unknown contacts, no secret emails. Relief washed over me, followed quickly by shame at my paranoia. A week later, Grace mentioned reorganizing our finances for security reasons.
Maybe we should split some of our accounts,
she said casually at breakfast. She watched my reaction over her coffee cup.
My friend Diane did that after someone nearly stole her identity. It makes things safer.
For a moment, something vulnerable flickered across her face. Doubt, perhaps, or a remnant of the woman who once shared everything with me. Her fingers tightened around her mug, as though anchoring herself to a decision that wasn't fully made. "Our joint accounts have worked for 8 years, I said, watching her carefully. "Why change now?"
Just being practical,
she said. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Her fingers drummed nervously on the table. I wondered if she hated herself in that moment. Did some part of her scream to confess? Did she want to stop the machinery she'd set in motion? The next day, I discovered small withdrawals from our savings account. $500 here, $700 there, going back 3 months. Not large enough to raise immediate alarms, but substantial when added together. When confronted, Grace explained they were for a surprise she was planning for our anniversary, asking me to trust her. I wanted to believe her. The alternative was too painful to consider. Doubt, once planted, grows like a weed and chokes trust. I started waking at night, watching her sleep. I wondered who she had become, or maybe who she had always been beneath the surface I thought I knew. An unexpected encounter confirmed my fears. Leaving work early with a migraine, I drove past a restaurant in a nearby town. I spotted Grace's car in the parking lot. It was 2:30 p.m. on a Tuesday, far from any of her clients' offices. I parked across the street and watched. 40 minutes later, she came out, laughing with a tall, dark-haired man I didn't know. He kissed her cheek and opened her car door, his hand lingering on her lower back in a way that felt too intimate. I didn't confront her that night. I smiled at dinner. I mentioned an upcoming neighborhood barbecue. Then I kissed her goodnight, pretending my world hadn't just shattered. In the bathroom, I looked at my reflection. I hardly recognized the man staring back. He had hollow eyes and seemed diminished. He was holding on to the remains of a marriage that one of us had already abandoned. The next day, I called my college friend Ethan, now a divorce attorney in New Hampshire. "I need advice," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Hypothetically, if someone suspected their spouse was planning to leave them, his answer was painfully clear.
If there are significant marital assets at stake, and you believe you are correct, you must protect yourself. Now. Not next week, not after you've gathered more evidence. Now.
"That feels like admitting it's over," I said.
It's insurance,
Ethan replied gently.
If you're wrong, no harm done. If you're right, well, you don't want to be blindsided twice.
That afternoon, I felt shaky and sad as I started to secure my assets. I set up a trust in my mother's name and moved our investments and my share of the home equity into it. I opened new accounts at another bank. I also documented the strange withdrawals and collected financial records from years past. Each signature felt like a betrayal. Ethan's words echoed in my mind.
If she's planning what you think, she's been working on this for months. You're playing catch-up in a game you didn't know you were in.
For 2 weeks, I acted like everything was fine. We shopped for groceries on Saturdays, watched our favorite shows, and made small talk that skipped the real issues. I noticed Grace checking our online banking more often. Her frown deepened each time. The day I found the burner phone changed everything. Instead of confronting her, I put it back where I found it. Then I went home to prepare the anniversary dinner she would never eat. I chopped vegetables carefully, marinated the steak she loved, and chilled the wine from our Napa trip 3 years ago. When she arrived home, her smile faltered at the sight of the set table and candles.
"What's all this?"
she asked, her voice pitched slightly higher than normal. "Early anniversary celebration," I replied, kissing her cheek. "I have that conference next week, remember?" Guilt flashed across her face, her hand unconsciously reaching for her purse, where I knew the second phone was hidden.
"Of course. That's so thoughtful."
Throughout dinner, I watched her check her watch repeatedly. She barely touched her food and drank more wine than usual. When her regular phone buzzed, she practically lunged for it. "Everything okay?" I asked.
"Fine.
She said too quickly, her laugh brittle and forced.
Just Amanda about a presentation tomorrow."
"Funny thing happened today," I said casually. "I was looking for the insurance card in the glove compartment and found something interesting." The color drained from her face. She gripped her wine glass so tightly I thought it might shatter.
"What?"
"Yeah, an old receipt from that bed and breakfast in Vermont. Remember that weekend? When we got snowed in and had to stay an extra night?" Relief visibly washed over her, her shoulders dropping as she exhaled.
"Of course. That was a wonderful trip."
"It was," I agreed, holding her gaze. "Back when we were still honest with each other." The next morning, Grace announced she needed to go into the office despite it being Saturday. I nodded and said I'd be meeting James for lunch. Instead, I followed her at a distance as she drove not to her office building, but to a coffee shop 20 miles away. Through the window, I watched her meet the same man from the restaurant. They sat close, their heads bent together in intense conversation. At one point, she wiped tears from her eyes while he held her hands across the table. I didn't need to see more. I drove home, packed a small bag, and left a note saying I was going to visit my cousin for the weekend to clear my head. I didn't have a cousin, but Grace had never paid enough attention to my family to know that. When I got back Sunday night, the house was eerily quiet. I saw Grace in the living room, sitting upright in the dim light. Her hands were neatly folded in her lap. The air between us felt charged, like just before lightning strikes.
"We need to talk,"
she said, patting the couch beside her with a practiced casualness that made my skin crawl. I remained standing, one hand still on my weekend bag, the other gripping the doorframe. "About?" Her eyes met mine, hiding nothing. The woman who once showed excitement for a surprise dinner now spoke with the smooth precision of someone who had practiced in front of a mirror.
"I think we should separate,"
she said, her voice steady, each word carefully measured.
"I'm not happy, Mark. I haven't been for a long time."
Despite expecting this, the words hit like a physical blow. "Is there someone else?" I asked, already knowing the answer. She hesitated, her eyes darting away as she twisted her wedding ring.
"This isn't about another person. It's about us."
A shadow crossed her face, something between regret and resentment.
Remember when I got that promotion last year? You didn't even come to the celebration dinner. You sent flowers instead.
I was closing the Henderson deal.
You're always closing some deal, Mark.
Her voice had an edge I rarely heard.
For 8 years, I've been the supportive wife. I've rearranged my schedule for you and moved to this suburb I never wanted.
She gestured around our living room, a space she decorated but rarely used.
We've grown apart. You must feel it too.
I've felt something, I said. I've sensed you pulling away, keeping secrets and checking out of our marriage while pretending to be committed. What I haven't felt is your honesty about why.
That's not fair.
She protested, her voice rising defensively.
I've been trying to figure things out.
With help from, what's his name? The guy you've been meeting? Her eyes widened, a flash of panic crossing her face.
You've been spying on me?
No, Grace. I've been waking up to what's been happening right in front of me. There's a difference. She looked away, her jaw working.
His name is Daniel. He's just a friend who's been helping me sort through some things.
Things like how to leave your husband while taking half of everything we've built together. Her silence was confirmation enough.
I've already moved out,
She said finally.
I've been staying at Diane's. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the division of assets.
I laughed, the sound hollow even to my own ears. Of course you will. 3 days later, I got divorce papers. They demanded half of our home equity, my retirement savings, and spousal support. This was surprising since her 6-figure salary was nearly equal to mine. The document felt more like a financial hostage negotiation than the end of a loving partnership. Ethan delivered my response. He brought documents showing the trust I had set up and records of Grace's unexplained withdrawals. Her lawyer, a sharp-featured woman with predatory eyes, flipped through the papers, growing more dismayed with each page.
This is outrageous.
She sputtered, looking to Grace.
You didn't mention any of these withdrawals.
Grace stared at me across the conference table, her expression shifting from shock to fury.
You planned this.
She hissed.
You knew, and you deliberately hid assets.
I protected myself, I corrected. Just like you've been doing for months. In the hallway afterward, Grace grabbed my arm.
How could you do this to me? After 8 years together.
That's what I've been wondering about you, I replied, gently removing her hand. How long were you planning your exit strategy while sleeping beside me every night? I hesitated, trying to read her face.
It wasn't like that.
She insisted, her voice cracking slightly.
Things haven't been right between us for years.
She ran her fingers through her hair, a gesture I'd seen countless times when she was struggling with difficult decisions at work.
You stopped seeing me, Mark. After the second miscarriage, you buried yourself in work while I was drowning.
Her voice softened, revealing a pain I hadn't allowed myself to see.
Daniel just helped me see I deserved more.
I absorbed this like a physical blow. There was truth there, painful truth I'd avoided. After our lost pregnancies, I had retreated, unable to bear her grief on top of my own. But her next words hardened something in me. And, apparently more, included my retirement fund and the house my bonus helped buy, I said. Strange how your unhappiness and financial ambitions aligned so perfectly. Her eyes flashed.
This isn't over.
Actually, it is, I said quietly. It was over the moment you decided our vows were negotiable, but our assets weren't. The weeks that followed were a bizarre emotional gauntlet. Grace vacillated between threats and tears, vicious accusations and desperate pleas for reconciliation. In the parking lot after one particularly brutal mediation session, I found her leaning against my car, eyes red-rimmed.
You never understood what I needed,
she said, her anger gone, replaced with something more complex.
I told you for years I was lonely, even with you right beside me.
And your solution was to steal from me? I asked, keys gripped tight in my palm. She looked away.
I didn't plan this, Daniel said.
She paused.
It all got so twisted. Sometimes I don't recognize myself.
For a moment, I saw the woman I married. Not the villain I imagined, but someone as lost as I was. She made terrible choices that couldn't be undone. Throughout it all, Daniel stayed in the background, a shadowy figure behind our downfall. He vanished when money troubles arose. At first, our friends stayed neutral, but Grace's odd behavior and mixed stories raised suspicions. The final blow to her credibility came when her close friend Jessica, worried by Grace's tale, shared old text messages Grace had sent her.
Daniel says I should start moving money soon. Small amounts so Mark doesn't notice. Once everything's ready, we can finally be together without financial worries.
As our friend group split along loyalty lines, I withdrew into solitude. I moved to a small apartment downtown, leaving the house that had become a tomb for my failed marriage. Each evening, I sat on my balcony, watching the city lights. I wondered how someone could share your bed for years while secretly planning your ruin. My mother, practical and unsentimental, arrived unannounced one weekend with groceries and cleaning supplies.
Enough wallowing,
She announced, opening my curtains to let in the spring sunlight.
You've been betrayed, not defeated.
What's the difference? I asked.
Betrayal is something done to you.
She said, handing me a mop.
Defeat is something you choose to accept. Now clean your bathroom while I make lunch. This place smells like regret and takeout.
Her bluntness was exactly what I needed. As we worked side by side, she shared her own story of resilience after my father abandoned our family when I was too young to remember.
I thought my life was over,
she admitted.
Instead, it was just beginning. But I had to choose that perspective every single day until it became true.
The divorce was finalized 6 months after Grace found her plans thwarted. She received none of my protected assets, and, given the evidence of her duplicity, no spousal support. Daniel, I later learned, ended their relationship shortly after it became clear there would be no financial windfall. The seasons changed. Winter melted into spring. My phone lit up with a text on what would have been our 9th anniversary.
I made a terrible mistake. Can we talk?
I stared at those 11 words for a long time, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. For a moment, I wondered what she might say, what explanation she could possibly offer that would make sense of the wreckage. Then I set the phone down and watched the sunset paint the city in gold and shadow. Some bridges, once burned, should remain ashes. The healing process was not quick or straightforward. Mornings started with me reaching for someone who wasn't there. Afternoons brought sudden rage, catching me off guard in meetings, snapping my pen in frustration. Evenings found me under the shower, hoping to wash away her voice until the water turned cold. Nights were the worst. Shadows stretched across empty sheets. Silence magnified every creak in the apartment. Loneliness pressed on my chest, making it hard to breathe. In this empty aftermath, I sat in a therapist's office. I sank into a leather chair across from a woman who focused on betrayal trauma. Session by session, I learned to process my grief without letting it take over my life.
What you're going through is like PTSD,
she said.
Your sense of reality and safety was shaken. Recovery isn't just moving on, it's about rebuilding trust in your own perceptions.
Little by little, I began to rebuild my life. I joined a hiking group and reconnected with friends I had neglected during my marriage. I accepted a promotion that I had been too emotionally drained to consider during my divorce. A year after the divorce, I ran into Jessica at a mutual friend's wedding.
"You look better.
She said, studying my face.
Less haunted."
I feel better, I admitted. Still damaged but functioning. She smiled.
"Functioning is underrated. Sometimes it's everything."
We talked throughout the reception, and I found myself laughing genuinely for the first time in ages. When she suggested coffee the following week, I hesitated only briefly before agreeing. Our friendship grew slowly into something deeper. We were both cautious about rushing into emotions we weren't ready for. Jessica knew betrayal well. She had found out about her fiancé's cheating years ago.
"The hardest part,"
she said in one of our long talks,
"is trusting your own judgment again. You begin to wonder if you're just bad at choosing people."
And are we? I asked. Broken, I mean. She thought about the question.
"I don't think so. We're more careful now. It feels like brokenness, but might be wisdom."
2 years after finding Grace's burner phone, I stood in my new home. It was a modernist cabin I had designed, overlooking the Berkshires. Jessica moved in the kitchen, making dinner while I uncorked wine. Our simple domestic life still surprised me at times. "I got another email from Grace today," I mentioned casually. "She's moving to Chicago." Jessica glanced up.
"How did that make you feel?"
I considered the question. Nothing, really. Just information about someone I used to know. It was true. The woman who nearly destroyed me felt like a character from a book I read long ago. She was recognizable, but distant, no longer able to cause pain. Later that evening, watching the sunset from our deck, Jessica rested her head against my shoulder.
"Do you ever regret how things turned out? Not the divorce, but everything that came after?"
I thought about the question carefully. The betrayal had stripped me to my foundation, forcing me to rebuild from scratch. The process had been excruciating but clarifying, revealing strengths I hadn't known I possessed, and weaknesses I'd needed to address. "No," I said finally. "I regret that it happened, but not who I've become because of it. Does that make sense?" She nodded against my shoulder.
"Perfect sense."
That night, I lay awake next to Jessica, who slept peacefully. I thought about how devastation can lead to growth. Grace's betrayal aimed to break me, both financially and emotionally. Instead, it freed me from a relationship built on illusions. It pushed me to face truths I had avoided about myself and my marriage. The scars still lingered. I felt irrational panic when Jessica worked late. I had a nervousness about our joint accounts. Sometimes I even had nightmares of secret phones and hidden messages. Yet, under those scars, I found something stronger, resilience from surviving what I once thought would ruin me. I had learned the most important lesson. Trust, once broken, can be rebuilt, not as the naive faith of youth, but as something more nuanced and durable. A trust tempered by experience, constantly verified but freely given, cautious but not paralyzed by fear. It wasn't the life I had planned, but it was authentic in a way my marriage to Grace had never been. And in that authenticity, I had found something I hadn't realized was missing until I lost everything else. Peace. Like many cheating wife Reddit stories I'd read during my darkest days, my experience followed a familiar pattern. But unlike those anonymous tales of infidelity stories shared in online forums, mine had evolved into something more meaningful, a journey of rediscovery. What began as a devastating betrayal had transformed into one of those lost love chronicles where the ending, while different from what I'd imagined, brought unexpected fulfillment. If you've felt the sting of betrayal or manipulation, it can shake you deeply. Trust your instincts and protect yourself. This is your reminder. Heartbreak can leave you feeling lost, angry, even ashamed for trusting someone who didn't deserve your loyalty. But let me tell you this: your pain doesn't define you. Your strength does. Trusting someone is never a weakness. It means you had the courage to love fully. And now you have the power to protect yourself, to rebuild, and to grow wiser from the ashes of what was lost. If my words resonated with you, share your own cheating stories or healing journey in the comments below. You are not broken. You are becoming.